News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset, y'all. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. I rarely start out the show with a guest, but for a few days I've been saying, when are you going to talk to the folks that you have some friends over there at WBT Charlotte with? And the time has come, and none other than the great Pete Kellner. News Talk, blah, 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 blah. Pete, my friend, you are with News Talk 1110 WBT in Charlotte, and you worked in Asheville, which is the center of some of the most worst devastation from what I've heard, as a host there from 2012 to 2020, now at WBT in Charlotte. Pete Kellner, thanks for joining the show, sir. I appreciate your time on a Friday night, first of all.
Well, sure. I appreciate you highlighting this story and letting me be a guest in your first segment. I'm honored. I appreciate that.
Well, I mean, no one's going to have a better eye on the ground than you and you guys at WBT Charlotte, because you are the monster station for the entire state of North Carolina and beyond, in my humble. And so please tell me, before we get into my questions, what really is going on in your state? How bad is it?
It's very, very bad. Very bad. It's part of the problem has been that the topography of the mountains, the Blue Ridge Mountains and the Appalachian Mountain chain, the elevations are such. I mean, you've got the Continental Divide, you've got the highest peak, Mount Mitchell, you've got on the East Coast, east of the Mississippi. It's all right there. That's where this occurred. And it's not just the rain. I mean, it is the rain, but it wasn't just the rain. It was almost 30 inches of rain in 2 days. But the week prior, there was about another 7 to 11 inches of rain, depending on where you were. And when that water hits the saturated ground and it just starts running down the mountains, you're dealing with not just flooding, you're dealing with flooding at a velocity that gets faster and faster as it comes down thousands of feet of elevation. And it's ripping out trees, it's pulling houses off of foundations, it's realigning rivers. It is unlike anything that I've ever seen. There are hundreds of people still unaccounted for. The death toll at this point is over 220, and it is the worst hurricane since Katrina, and I would submit it appears to be a worse response than Katrina, at least at the federal level. And I'm not a guy who counts on FEMA. I don't count on FEMA. FEMA comes in later and writes the checks, Right. The first responders are you, me, it's the locals, then it's it's you and me in your house, and then it's your neighbors, and then the local and state officials, rescue operations. And then, we were thinking, okay, well, you got the 82nd Airborne here in North Carolina.
Yesterday, they were an hour away from you, I understand, from Fort Liberty, Fort Bragg, and Joe Biden finally asked them, and Kamala finally asked them yesterday to show up. A week afterwards, Pete.
Yeah, and I haven't heard a good explanation for it. We have so many now. Western North Carolina is also home to, I think, the largest concentration of former military in our state. And it's a place where people just like to kind of move up the mountain, be left alone, And what that means, though, just from like a settlement and development standpoint, is that you don't really have large cities. The biggest city is Asheville. It's like 94,000 people. And that's the big city in a 25 county area. That's, the size of the tri-state area up in the Northeast. It's a very large area. And you have these little pockets of, 10, 15, 20 homes, a little downtown area consisting of maybe a stoplight, very small little communities. And these things have been literally wiped away, just wiped off. And you had the last count I saw was about 120 mudslides and rock slides, which is just an unbelievable number. And that, I mean, if you can think of something worse than the raging floodwaters coming down, it is floodwaters of mud and debris that breaks your bones, gashes you open as it crushes you on the way down a mountain. I mean, it is horrific. And there are bodies that are still out. They are still in rivers. They are still in homes, and they haven't dug everybody out. They can't get to these places because there are no roads. There's a mountain pack mule charity that is running supplies up into mountains because they can't get cars through. They can barely walk up these mountains because of the damage. And you've got people now. Tomorrow will be the 8th day, and you can't live without water.
No,
after
3 days.
3 days. Yeah, and food for 3 weeks, but people need life-saving medicines. They don't have insulin. They don't have refrigeration to keep medicines cool. I mean,
no self-service,
it's a catastrophe.
No electricity, nothing.
Yeah. The water plants have been just obliterated because these plants are set up on the rivers.
The energy plants, you said?
The water treatment.
Okay,
so
yes.
No water, no electricity. Although I will say, Duke Energy, they have been getting people back on. I think they are down now around 250,000, I want to say, without power. So they've restored over 1 million. And thank God for Elon Musk for delivering hundreds of Starlinks to the area.
I understand the government, the Joe Biden administration, has shut that down. They've stopped funding it or something.
He came in and gave them to the area for free. The problem he's running into is the red tape, is the federal government bureaucracy, and where can we drop these things? He had some people bring some in earlier. He's got people from SpaceX that have volunteered, and they're on the ground.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's the vast majority of the search and rescue operations and the relief operations are being run by private citizens.
Unbelievable. Disgusting. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say that's also the way that mountain folk roll here.
Yes, and it's good, but I'm saying it's disgusting because George Bush didn't show up for Katrina till 4 days, and he was destroyed publicly in the media. Joe Biden showed up, I think it was 6 days later, 5 days later, and nothing.
And the worst part was the flyover that he did in the helicopter.
Shut down the operations, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Shut down the airspace for about 3 hours. And they're running. And these are tree-covered mountains, right? So there are no landing pads up there. And you can't get a Chinook chopper to land inside these tiny, cramped, steeply sloped mountain areas. And so you got these smaller choppers that are flying in, privately owned, and we've got people that are getting into whiz-in matches with the private people that are coming in. Don't you go up there? We had a local assistant fire chief threaten a chopper pilot with arrest if he went back up and picked up a husband after he saved the wife and brought her down the mountain.
Oh my gosh!
And a fire chief is like, if you go back up there, you come back, I'm going to arrest you. And he's like, well, my son's up there. I left my son up there with the husband. He's my co-pilot. And he's like, I'm going back to get him.
Good.
And like, if you bring him, you go back up there, I'm going to arrest you. And so he had to go back up the mountain. He picked up his son, and he had to tell that guy, I can't take you back down.
My gosh.
I don't know what kind of protocol that is, but whatever it is, whatever book that's in, that needs to be rewritten.
Destroyed. Okay, now Pete. First of all, Pete Kellner, News Talk 1110 WBT Charlotte, the monster station for North Carolina. He also worked in Asheville, at the epicenter of some of the worst hit places in all of North Carolina, as a talk host from 2012 to 2020 before going to WBT. My buddy Eric Erickson writes, and then I'll read what Musk sent out on Twitter today from his friend texting him. Erickson writes, private aviation's ability to rescue people. Biden and Buttigieg have hindered private aviation's ability to rescue people and ferry supplies as needed because Buttigieg et al. Put their trust in Uncle Sam. Also, towns are rallying. Private helicopter pilots are defying threats of arrest to rescue people. Private pilots are shuttling supplies as needed. Baptists and Mormons are working together as first responders. And then I got this. Musk tweets out a little while ago. This is from his buddy. Hey, Elon, update here on the site of Asheville. We have powered up something or other. And then he says, it's true they are now able to shut down the airspace to, quote, regulate private choppers. We are riding in to deliver Starlink and supplies. We are pushing back with Trump team as well to help us, but not looking good. We need to get word out about FEMA. We spoke with Ivanka and handed out Starlinks with her yesterday, but FEMA then showed up and started blocking us. The largest concern for us here is FAA throttling flights for our choppers when they are requiring to-from information and mission now to deliver a discrete code. Doing this takes a long time and very cumbersome to the ops. This is the largest concern and most help we could use. So how true is that, and anything else I'm missing?
So, no, I think that may be this. I didn't hear. I have not heard that message, but I think it may be the same individual who Musk retweeted a message from earlier in the day. And that is, I mean, I just saw Musk was tweeting at Pete Buttigieg, saying, clear the airspace. Like, we have this stuff, we need to get it in. And it's just like, I am one who always defaults to incompetence when it comes to the federal government. Right. That is usually the explanation. They are just not adept. And they, as an organization, it's just so large and there are so many people, and they are not equipped to handle this kind of stuff, which is why I thought it was unfair to attack George W. Bush over Katrina, because, again, FEMA is not boots on the ground. But when you are actively working against the efforts, and my whole focus for this entire week has been, what is the first order problem? And the first order problem was communications, because without comms, we don't know where people are. We can't communicate with the rescue teams. If they get in trouble, we can't
prioritize help. Prioritize help. Yeah. Pete, can you hold for a few more minutes? One more segment. Yeah. Thank you. I really appreciate you very, very much, man. I really do. Pete Callender, a host of Pete Callender's show on News Talk, the host on News Talk 1110 WBT Charlotte. Worked as a talk host before that in Asheville, nearby, not in the same state, obviously the epicenter of this disaster, from 2012 to 2020. He continues to join us because he knows a lot about what's really going on there that we may not be hearing, and we're getting incredible information. I want to spend one more segment with him talking about, we didn't get how many he thinks are missing from what he's hearing, how devastating he thinks this will end up being, what we're not seeing, rescue stories, horror stories, all sorts of different things. And we'll talk about government warnings too late. And what is the state going to trend more for Trump after this disaster and not getting the right help? Could this tip past the tipping point of a swing state? Possibly. I don't know. He has a much better idea than I do because he's there. That's all coming up next on the Chris Crock Show on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. 800-288-WBAP is our number. That's 800-288-9227. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset, y'all. 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227. My newsman and buddy, Sean Allen, says he's really enjoying the interview, and it's because of the talent of Pete Callender, who is a staple mainstay at WBT Charlotte, the monster station for that market and that state, and formerly was over at Asheville at a talk station there for 8 years, from 2012 to 2020. So, Pete, I want to say thank you. First of all, your time is invaluable, and your storytelling and your facts are unparalleled. Thank you for your time tonight. It's really an honor to have you on, a treat in this horrible time for your state.
That's that's very kind of you. I appreciate it. I also I heard your spot there during the break. You're talking about the Baptist Church, and the Baptists have really done a lot of the work in the mountains in the wake of Helene.
Is it Texas Baptist or just Samaritan's Purse?
Samaritan's Purse. There's a local organization that I've done a lot of work with over the years when I was up in Asheville. It's called Hearts with Hands. They are a disaster relief organization as well, Baptist, and they amazingly enough, their warehouse of their supplies was spared while the entire area was obliterated.
There's a message in there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
and so they were able to deploy immediately, and they're usually going to other states. And just for folks, for the geographically disinclined, I guess, Asheville is it's about 125 miles away from Charlotte, which I think that counts in Texas as like
that's
in
a
the
suburb.
same neighborhood.
That's a suburb. That's Plano. That's Frisco.
Yeah,
that's Bikini.
Yeah, so it's about 125 miles away, and it's at the border of Tennessee to the west, and then Georgia and South Carolina. It's all in that one corner where the mountain chain runs through. So Tennessee got nailed too. North Georgia got nailed. South Carolina got nailed, but most of the deaths are in this one western North Carolina region.
Pete, how many still missing that could be dead in North Carolina?
The last number I saw was roughly 600 unaccounted for, but we don't know if that means that they just haven't been able to send messages. We've got towns that have been completely cut off, communities cut off, and so they've been congregating at their churches and making lists of names. There are people that went up to Mount Mitchell, the highest point on the east of the Mississippi. They went up there and they have been gathered up there because it was the highest ground, literally the highest ground they could get to. And they've been keeping lists, and they finally got a cell signal out, and they took pictures of the list of names of everybody that was up there. So people would know. There are Facebook groups that have been set up, but obviously if you don't have internet access, you can't let people know you're okay. And at this point, it's been 7 or 8 days, and their cell phones have died.
Yeah.
They don't have power, although, again, a lot of it is being restored at this point.
Right.
And before I forget, there's two things I wanted to just...
Yeah, we got 1 minute. I had two quick ones, but you go first.
Just real quick. They're not seizing people's lands under eminent domain. I've seen this rumor on internet. That's not happening. Right. Also, the mine for the quartz mine in Spruce Pine, tiny little town, it is reopening. It is not some grand conspiracy to seize the quartz.
Okay. Number two, I thought quartz was cheap. Anyways, Quartz Watch. Yeah. The North Carolina hurricane victims, where's our effing government? Is that accurate? And how bad could this hurt Kamala's chances of winning North Carolina?
So there are concerns about voting. Early voting is getting underway in about less than 2 weeks now, and this is Trump country. The whole area is very red, except for the city of Asheville. It's a blue dot in a sea of red. Okay. And so I don't know, because Asheville being 94,000, but there are more voters outside, and so there are concerns that the Board of Elections, which is run and controlled by the governor, who is a Democrat, may be not so inclined to make sure that they get to vote. Okay, so it might hurt Trump. Last question is, how can we help? We got to go, but how can we help? I always refer people to heartswithhands.org, heartswithhands.org. Also, Samaritan's Purse is doing great work here, and Mercury One from Texas is doing great work. They're on the ground here, too. Thanks for your help, Pete, and for your time. What a blessing it is. Have a wonderful weekend, sir, and thanks for everything. We appreciate you. Thank you for elevating the story. We really appreciate it. Thank you, friend. All right, take care. There he goes. And coming up next, we're going to get into how bad do you think Kamala and Biden's response has been to this hurricane? And do you feel Kamala and Joe are not being held to the same standard as George Bush, for example? 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. We'll get into that, and I want to get into all the details on that on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3 at 8:33 on News Talk 820 WBAP.
There's no power, there's no water, there's no internet, there's no cell phone coverage. We're just it's a disaster.
Just pray for everybody here. Everything's replaceable. Life is not.
No water, barely have food, everything expiring in our fridge. So.
FEMA is not on the ground there at all. They are not in these cities, not in these towns, and not in these villages.
And then you have this.
We have people on oxygen that are completely out now. We have babies up there with no formula, nothing.
This is like a Katrina on steroids.
We've lost friends. There's been landslides. The day that it happened, it was so bad. Our children thought we were dead. And we had to hang on to boulders, trees, and go through a roaring creek to get out. But we're alive.
We try to find our friends. We can't. We don't know
if they're dead or alive.
So that's some of the stuff here. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset, y'all. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Listen to this lady being interviewed by NBC News, and listen to what she says.
Nobody's going to help us. I mean, I don't know what we're going to do.
Do you have any faith in the federal response here?
No.
That was today. This is on my Twitter feed. Almost everything here is on my Twitter feed. Follow me on Twitter at Chris Crock Show. That's at Chris Crock Show. I want to know, how bad do you think the Kamala Biden response has been? And do you feel Kamala and Joe are not being held to the same standard as George W. Bush? Because 4 days after Hurricane Katrina, which is the first, my understanding is the deadliest storm since in the past 50 years. This one is the second deadliest storm. It's the next deadliest storm after Katrina in 50 years. And where the hell is Biden and Kamala? She's campaigning every day, all over the place. And when you have a disaster of this magnitude, we're at, according to Pete, it went up from it was a little earlier today, the death toll, and like by the mid-morning, was 213. Now he says it's 220, and there's still, I believe, several hundred missing, and they just can't get up there. So you could have 300-400 dead or more, and it's unbelievable. And I heard today too on Fox, there was a man talking from Asheville, and he literally his city just said no drinking water for 2 to 6 weeks. No water from the city for 2 to 6 weeks. How do you survive when there's no water for 2 to 6 weeks? Well, let me tell you something. People are going to get them like bottled water, but he said that's not enough. We need water for what? Bathing, washing dishes. I mean, you're going to run out of paper plates. My home would run out of paper plates, depending on what week it is, in anywhere from a week to 3 weeks. And with a family of four, and you're not going to keep doing regular dishes because you can't. And then no bathing, and then you won't wash your hands. You can't wash your hands, so you can get all sorts of infections and disease from having to go to the bathroom, but not having, I don't know how much, whatever that stuff is you put on your hands. I forget what it's called, to squeeze it in sanitizer, hand sanitizer. Private aviation is being hindered, as you heard Pete say, and my buddy Eric Erickson in his blog today talk about, and we've heard reports on Fox News. They are threatening private pilots with arrest and trying to stop them from going in. I heard the great Greg Biffle, retired NASCAR driver, last night on Jesse Waters, and he's a helicopter pilot. He's even qualified to fly a Black Hawk. And he was doing rescue efforts on his own with his buddy in his chopper, and he's retired now, NASCAR, and he is rescuing people one by one, and they're telling him, you got to leave. He said, Joe Biden shut the airspace down for 4 hours, he said. And so he had to stop, and everybody else had to stop. And he said there's a fleet of like 20 or 30 helicopters of private people rescuing people and bringing aid to them. He brought a couple that flashed him. He happened to catch a mirror in the corner of his eye, all the way down the mountains, and they went down and they got them. They said, we need medicine for our pet, we need medicine for us, we need food, we need water, we need some of that basic tools or something. He brought them all back to them, and they were able to, so they're sustainable now for a couple weeks. This is just incredible, and the government's done nothing. And Joe Biden and Kamala Harris could have called up do you understand? I heard today that Fort Liberty and Fort Bragg are 1 hour from the disaster epicenter. And they have the 82nd frickin' Airborne, dude, which is perfection to fix this. That's according to the great Brian Kilmeade, who's been on my show several times over the years. And then I was hanging out with him recently, and he came back on. We were in New York at a big convention for talk radio. We hung out together. And that's when he said, I want to come on your show, da-da-da. And then I came back, and then we were on. He was on, but he was the one on Martha McCallum's show this afternoon saying the 82nd Airborne is perfect for this. And he says, I have a lot of contacts because I spoke over there. And he said, they told me absolutely they would go. And they were just asked yesterday. It was six days later when Joe Biden and Kamala Harris called up the 82nd Airborne. Why didn't they do it on the second day, the first day? Do you see what I'm saying? This is way worse than George Bush and Katrina, and you don't have Kanye West saying George Bush doesn't like black people or hates black people. You don't have liberals attacking George Bush, and the media, the mainstream media hasn't said jack about Kamala Biden because they want her to win, and she ain't going to win right now. We're going to get to that later. How bad do you think Kamala and Biden's response has been to this? And do you feel Kamala and Joe are not being held to the same standard as George Bush? And where's the outrage in mainstream news coverage of the outrage? 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Some people say it's because it's Trump country. You heard Pete Callender confirm that, my buddy from WBT Charlotte, who was in Nashville for 8 years as a talk host before going to Charlotte in 2020. So it's Trump country, except for, what do you call it, Asheville is a blue dot. And then you're hearing the Governor Cooper, who's a Democrat, doesn't seem to be jumping on the stick for voting issues with Trump country being wiped out. This is insane. Musk is being stopped from delivering Starlinks. They're shutting off the Starlinks. And his people from SpaceX and Starlink have been dispatched there for free to go help people and fly stuff in, and they're being stopped. 4 lines open. 800-288-WBAP is our number. How bad do you think Kamala Biden response has been? How do you feel Kamala and Joe are not being... Why do you feel that Kamala and Joe are not being held to the same standard as George W. Bush? Where's the outrage and the mainstream media coverage? Look at this. The path of the hurricane Helene caught a wide swath through red and pink areas as far as politics, and others in southeastern Georgia and northwestern North Carolina among the swingiest areas, showing how even small impact on turnout could have an outsized effect. Because Metro Charlotte is fine. I talked to Pete off the air a little bit, and he was on the air. Metro Charlotte's fine. But people in Metro Charlotte have loved ones an hour or two outside in this epicenter, and they can't talk to them. I have an audio of a woman saying that, actually. Look, this is a woman who is... this is a woman, I'll play her in a moment, but she calls out Biden and Harris because she literally has people and relatives and friends that have friends and relatives in the mountains in the epicenter of all this, and they can't reach them. So it could hurt the Metro Charlotte vote in a good way for us. Marty in Dallas, WBAP. What do you got?
How you doing, sir?
Good, sir.
I just want to remind you that George Bush called the governor of Louisiana during Katrina and said, "Do you need any help from the federal government?" And the governor said, "No, we're okay." So his response,
I remember that.
wasn't, "Yep." And this response of current administration is just pathetic. And I don't think people remember that, George Bush was on top of things back then.
Yeah, so 4 days is when George Bush showed up. It was 6 days or 5 days before Biden did, and nothing. And then Kamala, George Bush criticized for flying over and looking down. Kamala didn't even fly over, and she didn't look out of the window when she tweeted out a picture of herself, and she was not even on the phone, even though she was trying to make it look like it. Her earplug was not plugged into the phone. So, yeah. And then last but not least, we hear senators fear a FEMA entanglement with border crisis could hurt the disaster response mission. So they're too busy helping Kamala and Joe's illegals to help here.
It's just sad.
It is. It's angering and it's sad. Thank you for your call, Marty. Maybe they're hoping to not let these people vote and get us dispirited and trounce. I don't know if they're like, nobody cares. The media's not reporting it. We're fine. I don't know, but I hope that the right outcome happens regardless. Let me play for you two things. Here is the woman who is in Charlotte saying that people in the hill country and people have people in the hill country or in the hills there that they cannot reach.
We have people on oxygen that are completely out now.
Wrong one. It's this one right here.
Do you think the government is doing enough?
Honestly, I don't know how you did not have a formal press conference or something from either President Biden or Kamala Harris. I mean, how do you not say anything for 4 days? They've been stranded for 4 days, and this is the first we've heard from them at all. FEMA is not on the ground there at all. They are not in these cities, not in these towns, and not in these villages.
Does your relative have food? Does she have water? Does she have the medication she needs?
They have a minimal amount of water. They have a minimal amount of food. They were able to get slightly down the mountain to get a little bit of gas, but they haven't been able to cut their way out yet.
When you say cut their way out, what do you mean?
There's trees down. You have to have chainsaws up there to get the trees out of the roads, and that is if the mudslides didn't take the roads out completely. I can not even tell you how many families, even here outside of Charlotte, that are looking for their loved ones up in that area. No one knows anything.
So there you go. And I wanted to play one more thing for you. I don't know if you heard this. This is the most beautiful and tear-jerking thing in the world. An Asheville mother recounts the last moments with her 7-year-old son before he was swept away by the Helene floods. He became my hero, the mother says. As she's speaking on Fox News, she was wearing a Deadpool shirt because her son's favorite character, was it Deadpool? I think it was the favorite character of her son, Micah. I want you to hear this because it'll definitely bring tears to your eyes. This is a wonderful and important and very important call to play.
Tell us about Micah and the legacy that he's going to leave on this earth.
This moment. You know, I'm so proud of my son because in his last moments, he wasn't screaming for me. He was screaming, Jesus, Jesus, save me. Jesus, I hear you. Jesus, I'm calling upon you. And his wildest dreams and everything that he wanted to be was a superhero. And that was his goal in life. And instead, he's my hero because he reached for something past flesh, past human, past anything that even grown adults, I think, would reach for. My son called out to the one God Almighty. And I think at that moment he was rescued and he became my hero. And I think all of them carried me through that moment. I think that his biggest dreams, he was the smartest, bravest, hopeful, great friend. Great son. I couldn't have asked for a better son. And he was so happy up until the very end when he was screaming for Jesus. And in that moment, I think he found joy.
That's puts goosebumps on my arms, and I hope it does yours. Let that be a very wonderful, reassuring thing about our young folks and this young man and where he's going. What a hero. And what a horrific thing to see your 7-year-old boy taken from you, to lose his life. And I don't know if they've found his remains yet, but it's just terrible. Pray for that mother and for comfort. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Next, Dallas road rage ending in gunfire. Shooter claims self-defense. The shooter is a woman. The man who was shot is a man. It was all over road rage. I cannot wait to play this audio for you from Channel 8 WFAA, and then also to tell you the story and then talk about it with you. Coming up next on the Chris Crock Show on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3. 800-288-WBAP. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset, y'all. 800-288-9227. That's 800-288-9227. Well, this is one heck of a story that I can't wait to talk about. A woman is driving and in Dallas, in Lancaster, actually, or Lancaster, as they call it. And some guy aggressively cuts her off and is aggressively cutting her off and stuff. And so she says the driver swerved and brake checked them for several miles. You know what that tells me? She didn't slow down and get out of the way. I mean, maybe he kept doing it, but it takes two, and this is my opinion. If you slow down and just don't react and just totally, sometimes you can't get out of it, I understand, so you never know. But police affidavit says the man, this is from WFAA TV Channel 8, man says a 2020 Chevrolet Suburban started to aggressively cut her off while driving, reached for her handgun, and fired a warning round at the other vehicle, causing the back window to break. Here's the audio of this woman.
fired the warning shot, and she was like...
But in hindsight, do you think it was right to fire at someone's window? Someone's back window?
In that instance, I was scared for my life. And then he lifted up his arm walking towards our car, and that's when my mom did the shot.
So they exited on the shoulder, and she and the other driver got out. He took 2 or 3 steps towards her. She fired him with a handgun. He lifted up his arm towards his car. She fired the shot and hit him. So now she's been charged. She says it's self-defense, the woman that's her friend that was in the car speaking out. But she's been charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and arrested and held on a $100,000 bail. Since then, bonded out of Dallas County. Car and phone confiscated as evidence. Ag assault with deadly weapon. Okay, here's my question for you. Do you think this woman committed a crime by firing at this man's car and hitting it and then shooting him? What should she have done instead? And what kind of road rage incidents and guns have you seen or heard about in cars? And what's your advice about carrying while driving? 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Chime in right now. Line's wide open. But I'll tell you what, and wines are wide open as well. You like that? Wines wide open for Friday night? Okay. This woman is a moron. She has no business owning a firearm. She should be prosecuted with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. You are a moron if you own a gun and you fire a warning shot. You are an absolute moron. It shows you have no idea how to handle a gun and you have no idea how to use the gun lawfully and properly. You are an idiot if you fire a warning shot, even if somebody's trying to break into your house or prowling around your house. If you shoot a warning shot, you should be arrested. You will be charged for discharging a weapon within city limits. You don't shoot guns up in the air. Thugs do that on July 4th and kill people. You're an idiot and a moron if you do that. If you do that, you shouldn't own a gun. Try getting some basic firearm and gun lessons before you own a firearm if you don't even know what you're doing. Shooting at somebody's car is not lawful unless somebody's shooting at you or, trying to hit you and knock you off the road. That guy wasn't doing that. You weren't threatened. You're an idiot. Second of all, you got out of your car. You pulled over on the exit with him. You're an idiot. You're a super idiot. You are a moron. You don't pull over. If he gets off, you can even act like you're getting off with him if you're behind him. And then what you do after that is you pull back on and you leave. And you floor it and go 100. And you call 911 and have your passenger call 911 and look up at the same time while they're on 911 on the speaker and look up where the nearest police station is, and you go to that police station as fast as you can, and if you can blow off some red lights to get there, do whatever you got to do, and then you tell them what's going on. You pull right up in that police station. Anything else means you're an absolute moron. You deserve to go to jail for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. You will be charged. You should never get that gun back. You are a criminal and an idiot. People like you should not own a gun. Unfortunately, we have a lot of stupid people out there. This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And the woman, and I like how she said fear for your life. You just Googled what to say and just saying that. That's great. You fear for your life, so you shot at a car that wasn't shooting at you or trying to run you off the road. That is a massive moron alert, ma'am. I am shocked. I think you're lying to us because you don't want your friend to go to jail, but that woman is a moron. All right, coming up next, we'll take your call. I got a lot more audio. We have an audio from an expert that was interviewed on this. Hey, Stand Up to Breast Cancer. Register today for Susan G. Komen Race for the Cure on Saturday, October 19th. Your race entry fuels research and provides support for all those in the fight. Don't wait. Sign up today at Komen.org/Dallas Race, Komen.org/Dallas Race. 4 lines open. Chime in right now, 800-288-WBAP. More audio from the experts on this, whether it was legal or not, next.